I regard Alibaba as one of the worst mistakes I ever made.
Hey guys, I'm Andrew Invest, and that was Charlie Munger speaking at the Daily Journal AGM. So Charlie Munger is obviously a legendary investor in his own right, but he's also a close confidant of Warren Buffett, and it always pays to pay attention to what he's talking about. So he regards Alibaba as one of his worst ever investment mistakes. Do I feel the same way? Especially given I'm down nearly 25% in dollar terms on the stock and 16.5% in pound terms. So yes, but also no. In this video, I want to talk about why that is and also give a brief history of the controversy surrounding the stock. If Alibaba was an American company with these fundamentals and at this price, it would be an easy buy, a steal. But it's not an American company. However, the price is up nearly 18% in the last month on news that Alibaba is planning to split into 6 different subsidiary units, which will potentially unlock some of the value that would be implied by the fundamentals of the business as a whole. However, the price of the stock is still 2/3 below where it was at its all-time highs, and the political issues surrounding China still remain and are not fully abated yet. So without further ado, let's get straight into the analysis. To understand Alibaba, you have to understand Jack Ma. Jack Ma is the founder of Alibaba, and his name is synonymous with the company in China. He's very famous and outspoken. He's mercurial, kind of like a Chinese Elon Musk. Think of him that way. This is a podcast talking about his return to China recently and the breakup of the company into 6 subsidiaries. I think it explains the controversy around Jack Ma quite well. So let me just play an excerpt.
He likes to talk, he likes the media, he likes to be seen and heard.
She said, of course, I want you to be respected. Because she never thought I would be rich, I think.
Ma is also famous for throwing massive company parties, where he'd sing and perform on stage in front of thousands of people.
Oh, my.
But then, in 2020, after giving a speech that criticized Chinese regulators, Jack Ma all but disappeared. And people started wondering,
where is Jack Ma?
The mystery now surrounding tech tycoon Jack Ma.
The Chinese billionaire business magnate has not been seen in public since October.
But then, last week, Jack Ma reappeared.
The disappearance of Jack Ma was a watershed moment for Chinese capitalism. Many speculated that he'd been taken to re-education camp. Many others said that maybe he'd been killed. And overall, the Chinese stock market sold off in the hundreds of billions of dollars. When Jack Ma came back, he was a changed man and he had nothing but praise to say for the Chinese government, which makes me think that re-education is most likely. China believed that many big tech companies had amassed too much power and influence and were a threat to the state itself. This led to them cracking down on tech companies, calling for breakups, preventing IPOs in the US, and also acquiring golden shares in many of them, including Alibaba. Golden shares effectively allow the government to have a final veto on any decision that the business makes. Ultimately, Jack Ma returned to China, and even though he officially has no influence over Alibaba anymore, it is said by the Wall Street Journal that he was the one responsible for the decision to break Alibaba into 6 separate units. The reason for this is said here. I think there's a couple of reasons. First is Alibaba's own sort of reason. They're seen as this monolithic giant business empire, and then that has its own problems because then they become less agile, less inaudible, and the decision-making process just takes longer. That is one of the reasons that Alibaba is splitting up. The second reason would be the change in regulatory environment. For Alibaba to split up itself and say, hey, we're now just a holding company and all these 6 units, they're individual companies. They run themselves, they're not that big, and then they are all in different industries. They can be regulated by different sector regulators. It just sort of sends a message that we are willing to adapt to the new regulatory environment in China. At first glance, you might wonder why Alibaba being broken up into 6 separate units would be a good thing for the stock at all. And why has the stock gone up by 18% in the last month? After all, American big tech fights tooth and nail in order to not be broken up. Amazon, Meta, Apple, the list just goes on and on. Many in Washington, many in the Senate want big tech in America to be broken up, similar to big oil from the 1900s. But it's not happening. Why is that the case, and why is it a good thing that Alibaba is being broken up? The idea is that the sum of the parts would be greater than the sum of the whole at present due to Alibaba dropping so much in price. So the main 6 business units that will be broken off are cloud computing, e-commerce, local services, logistics, digital commerce, and media, with 2 more business units being run directly by the company, but all of these units effectively being under an Alibaba kind of holding group company, similar to how Alphabet is the holding company for Google. So what Goldman Sachs analysts are estimating is that the group's e-commerce business alone would be worth $103 per share. That's compared to $104 price right now as of Friday. So the e-commerce business alone would be $103. Would the rest of the business be only worth $1 per share? No. So Ali Cloud is valued at $16 a share and its international business at $12. Total, Goldman Sachs analysts estimated that all the businesses together, were they to IPO, would be worth $137, a premium to the current price of $104. So if we completely forget the news of Alibaba being broken up into its constituent parts, what do the fundamentals of the business actually tell us? So the revenue of the company has been increasing year on year pretty steadily for a significant period of time. There has been a slowdown recently due to increased competition and a slowdown in the Chinese economy as a whole, but it doesn't look to be in terminal decline. It's the same with the free cash flow. There's been a slowdown recently, but there's no sign that the business as a whole is going to collapse anytime soon. I think one really interesting figure to look at when it comes to Alibaba is its market cap and its cash figures. So the company as a whole is valued at $265 billion, whereas it is actually holding cash to the tune of $81 billion. That's nearly a third of its market cap in cash alone. If we compare that to another company that's famous for holding cash, Apple has a market capitalization of $2.6 trillion, nearly 10 times more, but its cash held is $51 billion, so less than Alibaba in cash, but 10 times higher of a valuation. Obviously, this doesn't mean the be-all and end-all when it comes to the business, but ideally, if Alibaba was an American company, it would be absolutely funneling its cash into share buybacks right now, because the share price is so cheap. The company should be able to give shareholders huge value by just buying back shares alone. So is this the case? What is Alibaba doing? If we look at the shares outstanding from 2021 in June, they have decreased the shares significantly, down from 2.7 billion to 2.6 billion. That's a 3.3% drop of the shares shares outstanding. These are also the American depository receipts. The share structure had come into question previously, but they are buying them back. So they're obviously viewed by the company as the exact same thing as Chinese Alibaba Hong Kong shares. So that's really positive too. I would actually think that they would put more money than that into buybacks, but obviously we cannot fully predict how Chinese companies will behave, as they're not necessarily run for shareholders' profit in the exact same way as American companies. If we look at the cash, these are in Hong Kong dollars, but it's not like the cash is declining at all. Whereas if you look at Apple's cash, it has declined year on year, whilst also putting its money into share buybacks. So I think that's really positive. I'm fairly happy with the direction that Alibaba is going in. My main concern is still that the Chinese government may have too much control over the company and that it may not end up being run purely for shareholder benefit. But right now, the board is clearly trying to make the share price go up and trying to extract more value for the shareholders themselves. Here we have news from March the 22nd that Alibaba surges more than 11% after it upped share buyback program to nearly $25 billion. That's definitely a move in the right direction. What does Charlie Munger have to think about the company as a whole? Let's play the full clip of the one that I showed at the beginning of the video.
And now he's out of BYD. It was pretty stupid. It's like poking a bear in the nose with a sharp stick. It's not smart. And Jack Ma got way out of line by popping off the way he did to the Chinese government. And of course it hurt Alibaba. But I regard Alibaba as one of the worst mistakes I ever made. In thinking about Alibaba, I got charmed with the idea of their position on the Chinese internet. I didn't stop to realize they're still a goddamn retailer. It's going to be a competitive business, the internet. It's not going to be a cakewalk for everybody.
So clearly, Charlie Munger's main beef with Alibaba is just its status as an internet company, its status as a retailer, and not concerns about the Chinese government. Myself, I am pretty happy with the company's fundamentals as a whole. Despite being a competitive market, we can see companies like Amazon doing really well. And Alibaba trades at a much more generous price than Amazon anyway. So those are my overall thoughts on Alibaba. I probably won't be buying too much more of the company despite the really attractive valuation, purely because my exposure to them already is pretty high as a percentage of my portfolio, and I don't want to take too much risk on the company, especially given that Chinese political situation could change at any moment. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.